Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
My dog went flying through the air over the tree. I don't know how it did it.
Okay.
Deep in Bigfoot Territory, Episode 1. Ape Island and Harrison Lake. This is a Squatch Mafia documentary. Ape Island and Harrison Lake, British Columbia, are notorious names in Bigfoot lore. Harrison Lake is situated in a remote part of the province of British Columbia in western Canada. Nestled amidst a rugged and majestic backdrop, it is one of the largest lakes in the southwestern part of the province. The lake is located in the Fraser Valley region, approximately 130 kilometers or 80 miles east of Vancouver. Harrison Lake stretches about 60 kilometers or 37 miles in length and has a maximum width of approximately 9 kilometers or about 5.6 miles. The lake's surface area is estimated to be more than 240 square kilometers or over 90 square miles. The depths of the lake are remarkable, reaching up to 250 meters in some areas. The surrounding area mainly consists of dense forests spreading across the steep slopes of the surrounding mountains. During the last ice ages, around 20,000 to 10,000 years ago, massive ice sheets covered vast parts of present-day Canada. These glaciers shaped the landscape, carving deep valleys in the mountains that were later filled with water from the melting ice masses, thus creating Harrison Lake. The mountains and waters around Harrison Lake can experience sudden and extreme weather changes. Snow, rain, fog, and storms can rapidly arise, limiting visibility. The environment surrounding Harrison Lake is home to diverse wildlife, including bears, cougars, wolves, elk, and deer. Harrison Lake is fed by rivers and streams originating in the surrounding mountains, which collect the meltwater from the glaciers. One of the most significant inflows is the Harrison River, which flows into the southern part of the lake. The remoteness and inaccessible areas in the surrounding mountains contribute to the eerie and haunting atmosphere of some places in the region. In the dense forests around Harrison Lake, there have been recurring reports of missing hikers and adventurers who are said to have gotten lost in the wild and challenging terrain. Some of these cases remain unsolved, giving rise to mysterious legends about the disappearance of these individuals. Harrison Lake contains several islands stretching along its waters. Some of the most well-known islands include Echo Island, Twin Island, and Long Island. There are other smaller islands in Harrison Lake that are not as famous, one of which has long been notoriously known as Ape Island. Harrison Hot Springs, a small resort town, is the main settlement on the shores of the lake. It is located on the southern shore of the lake and is famous for its natural hot springs. The town has a relatively small population. The exact number of residents may vary, but it is estimated that there are approximately 1,500 to 2,000 people living in Harrison Hot Springs. The history of Harrison Hot Springs dates back far and has a connection to the indigenous peoples of the region. The indigenous inhabitants knew about the hot springs long before Europeans discovered the area, using the natural hot springs for healing and spiritual purposes. The nearest major city to Harrison Lake is Chilliwack. Chilliwack is located approximately 40 kilometers west of the lake. Harrison Hot Springs is also home to the legendary John Green, the first researcher to investigate the 1967 site of the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot film shot at Bluff Creek, California. Today, the area remains a hotspot for contemporary Bigfoot hunters like Thomas Steenberg or the late Bill Miller, who have spent years researching and tracking the mysterious creature. An annual summer festival called Sasquatch Days has been running since the 1930s. The history of the indigenous peoples in the region around Harrison Lake goes back thousands of years. It is believed that the ancestors of today's indigenous communities migrated to this region about 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. The exact dates are difficult to determine as there are no written records from that time, and the history is reconstructed through oral traditions and archaeological findings. The region around Harrison Lake and Harrison Hot Springs has a rich history and culture of the indigenous peoples. The traditional territories of these peoples lie within the Fraser River Indians, also known as Stolo, and the Salish First Nation. The Fraser River Indians are a First Nations tribe residing in the Fraser Valley region. Their traditional territory extends along the Fraser River and its tributaries, including the area around Harrison Lake. The Fraser River Indians are divided into several communities, some of which are located near Harrison Lake. The Salish, also known as Chehalis First Nation, are another tribe of the First Nations living near Harrison Lake. Their territory encompasses parts of the Fraser Valley and includes the area around Harrison Lake and Harrison Hot Springs. These indigenous peoples have a deep connection to nature and a rich cultural history based on centuries-old traditions and customs. The traditional way of life for indigenous communities was closely tied to the land, waters, and wildlife that provided their livelihood. They have preserved their languages, stories, dances, and rituals through generations, maintaining their cultural identity to this day. Also, the word Sasquatch is thought to be a mispronunciation of the Salish word Saskats, meaning hairy man or wild man of the woods. It is said that residents of Harrison Hot Springs coined the term in 1929, as anglicization or mispronunciation of the local First Nations term, long before the subject ever entered popular imagination. The indigenous peoples of the region around Harrison Lake have a rich oral tradition of myths and stories that have been passed down for generations. In many indigenous myths, spirits and demonic beings appear, representing both protection and threat. Some of these spirits are friendly and can help humans, while others are malicious and bring misfortune. One of these creatures became known to the Western public as Sasquatch or Bigfoot. In some of the native myths of the Sasquatch, it is described as a powerful and spiritual being closely connected to nature and the forests. It is often portrayed as a shy guardian of the forest, appearing to humans to warn or protect them from danger. Some stories tell of how the Sasquatch shows people how to live in harmony with nature and respect its resources. The Sasquatch is also described as a kind of test or trial in some myths, challenging or testing humans to see how they behave and what values they hold in their lives. In these stories, the Sasquatch is often a powerful and enigmatic being that imparts a lesson to humans, teaching them and promoting their spiritual maturity. As with all myths and legends, the stories about the Sasquatch in the indigenous mythology of Harrison Lake are deeply rooted in the culture and beliefs of the communities. In some versions of the legends about Bigfoot in the mythology of the indigenous peoples of North America, including those living in the region around Harrison Lake, dark and threatening aspects can be present. In some stories, the Bigfoot is described as a mysterious and unpredictable creature that rarely reveals itself to humans, making its movements and actions difficult to anticipate. It is also often believed that the Sasquatch represents a kind of bridge between the world of humans and the spirit world. In some interpretations of the Bigfoot myth, there are stories of Bigfoot attacking or abducting humans. The notorious name Ape Island comes from the First Nations tribes living in the region around Harrison Lake. There are different theories about how the island got its name. Some believe that the name comes from the First Nations tribes, referring to the legends and myths of monkeys or ape-like beings in their culture. The island is known for its pristine wilderness and isolated location. To reach Ape Island, one must travel by boat on Harrison Lake. The surroundings of the island consist of dense forests and rocks, providing an ideal habitat for Sasquatch and other wildlife. There are no exact historical records of when Ape Island was first referred to as such. However, the name Ape Island has been in use for many decades and is used by the locals in the region. For nearly 200 years, the public has been aware of reports of big hairy humanoids made by Westerners in the region. Some of the documented sightings and encounters are listed here. In 1864, Alexander Caulfield Anderson, a Hudson Bay Company fur trader and explorer, and his party were attacked by hairy humanoids who stood on a cliff and threw rocks down at them in the Fraser Valley Canyon. In 1911 at Harrison River, a fisherman spotted a large hairy creature drinking from the river. The creature ran off when it realized it had been seen and left behind 17-inch footprints. In 1933 at Pitt Lake, two men using binoculars spotted a Sasquatch eating berries. In 1957 near the town of Hope, a truck driver saw a large hairy creature vault over a fence and head towards the Fraser River. In 1970 near Harrison Hot Springs, a man named Keith Shepard saw an 8-foot-tall Sasquatch cross the road in front of his car. In 1986, a family on vacation in Granite Creek felt something heavy slam into their cabin. They saw a large Sasquatch-like creature run off into the trees, leaving behind footprints measuring 16 inches long and 6 inches wide. In 1997, a man named Wayne Oliver videotaped a possible Sasquatch near the Fraser River at the town of Hope. In 2004, BCTV reported two women driving near the town of Tofino narrowly missed hitting a Sasquatch that stood in the road in front of them, refusing to budge until other cars approached, scaring it off. In 2013, Global News reported a group of Chinese tourists seeing Bigfoot and taking photos and video at Harrison Lake. In 2014, Global News reported a video shot near the town of Whistler in British Columbia that might show Bigfoot moving effortlessly through deep snow in a remote area. The most famous story in Bigfoot lore coming from the region around Harrison Lake is arguably the Albert Ostman story from 1924. Ostman, a Canadian prospector, traveled the area near Toba Inlet, around 40 miles away from Harrison Lake, in summer 1924. As Ostman lay asleep one evening, a Sasquatch purportedly picked him up and carried him off while he was in his sleeping bag. Ostman was carried in his sleeping bag across country for 3 hours by the Sasquatch before dropping Ostman. Standing around him were 4 of the creatures. One of the Bigfoots was reported as being 8 feet tall. Ostman was held captive by the creatures for a week before he managed to escape. He did not tell his story for more than 33 years. As more Sasquatch stories appeared in the press, Ostman decided to tell his story to a local newspaper in 1957. Here is a clip from the 1972 documentary Bigfoot Man or Beast, featuring an interview with Albert Ostman. You can watch the entire documentary on this channel.
Another miner and prospector, Albert Ostman, in 1924 was camped near Toba Inlet in British Columbia. While asleep in a sleeping bag, he was picked up and packed several miles. Daylight found him in a small valley encircled by cliffs. This was home for a family of these creatures. He was able to escape after 6 days by getting them sick on a box of snuff. Now let's listen to Mr. Ostman's experience.
Well, there was 4 of them, and none of them look alike. There was what I call the old man, because I had no scale or any rules for measurement, but he was at least 8 feet tall, and must have weighed at least 800 pounds. But what I call the old lady, she couldn't have been over, what, 600-700 pounds. She was probably 7 feet tall, and they were all covered with hair.
However, skeptics never believed Albert Ostman, and his story is one of the less likely encounter reports in general. Another more recently documented encounter from Ape Island comes from a man named Rob Wilson in 2007. Here is a clip of his encounter report given in a Monster Quest episode on Ape Island. You can watch the entire documentary on this channel. Another old and obscure story from Harrison Lake regarding Bigfoot is that of Jacko, or Jacko the Monkey Man. In summer of 1884, a newspaper from Yale in British Columbia published an article entitled "A Strange Creature Captured Above Yale." A British Columbia gorilla. It contained a report on a circus owner that had captured a creature that was described as a kind of strange gorilla, or a sort of monkey child. The story aroused nationwide attention at the time and triggered discussions about the existence of Bigfoot or similar creatures. It seems that the creature disappeared only a few months later. Over the years, many famous Bigfooters like Grover Krantz and John Green looked into the case. However, the sightings of Bigfoot in the region continue to this day. Some of the recent encounters include a sighting by two fishermen on Ape Island in 2009, who described an 8-foot-tall Sasquatch standing on the shores of the island. They also reported a foul stench coming from the creature. In 2014, a man spotted a 7-foot-tall creature at Morris Valley Road. The creature disappeared into the forest rapidly. In 2015, tracks measuring 19 inches long and 8 inches wide were cast and documented near Harrison Hot Springs. In 2016, a man reported an encounter with a large bipedal and hairy creature at the Harrison East Forest Service Road. The creature is said to have walked along the tree line before disappearing into the forest. This list is incomplete and ongoing. From a scientific perspective, there are several reasons that theoretically speak for the presence of a creature like the Sasquatch in the area around Harrison Lake. Nature is still full of undiscovered species, especially in remote and inaccessible areas like the dense forests of British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. It is theoretically possible that there is a large, human-like creature that is still unknown and described by local communities as Sasquatch. The absence of evidence does not necessarily mean the absence of a creature. It is likely that the Sasquatch is extremely cautious and intelligent, making it difficult to gather solid evidence of its existence. Indigenous peoples in the region have passed down stories and myths about the Sasquatch over generations. These cultural traditions could be based on observations or experiences with an unknown creature in the past. Numerous eyewitness reports from people claiming to have seen the Sasquatch in the area around Harrison Lake exist. While eyewitness reports alone are not scientific evidence, they could serve as a starting point for further investigation. The area around Harrison Lake offers a diverse and rich ecosystem with extensive forests and remote areas. It is possible that a large, elusive creature like the Sasquatch has found an ecological niche in this environment to survive without frequent human encounters. The rich biodiversity and abundance of natural resources in the area could provide an ecological niche for such a creature to live. The region offers a wealth of wildlife, fish, and plants that could serve as potential food sources for a large creature like the Sasquatch. The diverse animal and plant life would allow such a creature to feed and survive. The sparse human population and remoteness of the region could have contributed to rare sightings of the Sasquatch that are not frequently documented. The idea that Harrison Lake could be a suitable location for the Sasquatch aligns with the theory of migration during the Ice Ages. During the last Ice Age, large parts of North America were covered in ice. The glaciers shaped the landscape and created deep valleys, which later filled with water as the ice melted, forming lakes like Harrison Lake. The Bering Strait formed a land bridge between Asia and North America, allowing various animal species, including humans, and potentially large human-like creatures like the extinct Gigantopithecus, to migrate to the New World. Gigantopithecus was a giant ape that lived in Asia around 100,000 years ago. The Sasquatch could theoretically be descended from an extinct ancestor like Gigantopithecus and arrived in North America over the Bering Strait a long time ago. After the ice melted, the vegetation gradually recovered, and the area around Harrison Lake filled with forests, providing an ecological niche for a large, human-like creature like the Sasquatch. Please hit the like button if you have enjoyed this lecture on Sasquatch at Harrison Lake. For more content on Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and cryptozoology, subscribe to the Squatch Mafia channel on YouTube. Thank you for watching.